All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our presentation is on scaling your real estate investing business, the power of a fractional CFO. We are so fortunate to have Stefanie joining us. And Stefanie has been, well, we'll get into her story in just a minute here, but I'm so excited. This is my first webinar of my 2024 series, and I would absolutely love your feedback on it. Send me a message afterwards. Let me know what topics you'd like to see covered, how much Stefanie was able to help you with new information and a new perspective on managing your business. So I have my little disclaimer here, which I am required to share with you. I do not endorse any particular attendee, participant, speaker, investment sponsor, advertisement, or anything else presented during meetings, events on our website or social media. Basically, before taking action, make sure you are doing your research. And we're going to be talking a little bit more today about research and the importance of it, because just because somebody has one experience doesn't mean that somebody else is going to have the same one. So make sure you contact your professionals and reach out for support and guidance where you need to. And even now, 4 years into the pandemic, we are going to talk about Zoom and how to use it. So in the chat box, everybody should see hosts and panelists and everyone as the two options. Make sure you click the drop down in the chat box and choose everyone, because otherwise Stefanie and I are the only people who will see your lovely, insightful, and inspiring comments. For my webinars, I like to use the Q&A tab, because if you ask questions in the chat box, there's a fairly good likelihood that it will get lost. So please make sure that if you have a question for Stefanie to address at the end, go into the Q&A tab at the bottom and put your question in there so that I can track and manage all the questions at the end for Stefanie. Our agenda today, I'm going to do a quick introduction. Stefanie is going to present, then we should have time at the end for Q&A. So if you want to know and understand better what Stefanie's talking about or the services that she offers, please don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A tab. And then I'll be back at the end to do a quick wrap up as well. I am your host. My name is Elizabeth Kelly. For those of you who don't know me, I have been a real estate investor for almost 20 years. I am now a coach in addition to my own investments. And I just love the opportunity to be able to help people achieve their dreams. I provide structure and guidance and support for investors who want to move forward quickly and easily in the investment and the business space. And we are so fortunate to have Stefanie joining us today. After a 10-year career in corporate finance, Stefanie has moved into financial planning and analysis. And I hear it a lot from investors where they say, I'm not really into numbers. So the beauty is we can have Stefanie who can be into the numbers for us with all of her expertise and her knowledge. She is the founder of Real Estate Investing Finance. So she specializes in providing financial insight, foresight, and oversight. And we're going to be talking a little bit more today about what a CFO does and how a fractional CFO can make the same guidance and support available to you at a price tag that smaller investors can actually afford, which doesn't mean that she provides less value, but it just means that we can start using CFO services when we're a little bit smaller than we thought. Stefanie is also an active investor. She has a portfolio that includes multifamilies, international short-term rentals. She does private lending, has also done flips, house hacking, and JV partnerships. So when we talk the language of investors, Stefanie is going to completely understand and get where we're coming from. So I want to talk a moment about the headlines that we're seeing and why a CFO might be something that is important for us. We've seen a lot of these headlines coming at us. They are quite negative, and quite frankly, they can be extremely alarming as a new investor. And I really wanted to understand what is going on, what is happening behind the scenes, because I want to ensure that as a business owner and an entrepreneur, I am building a business that does not fall into these categories, that it is not a victim to the same challenges and the same experiences, because I know when I look for partners or when I am growing my portfolio, I want to ensure that I feel good about standing at the front of the room and talking about who I am, what I do, and how I can help people through investments. So I sort of broke it down because I'm moving a lot more into the space, not just of coaching in real estate, but also coaching with the idea of how do we create a business? How do we build a sustainable business as entrepreneurs and investors? A lot of us, when we're starting out, we go, oh, I want to I want to buy an investment property, without realizing that now we are in fact entrepreneurs and we need to know a whole bunch more in addition to just how do I run numbers and decide if this is the right, market that I want to invest in. So there are really two kind of buckets that things fall into. So when you are creating or building your business, there are some key points that we have to cover. So we have to know our numbers. And this is where someone like Stefanie is so key. We need to start by doing a competitive analysis, running our SWOT, maybe doing a budget and some projections. So this is before we have a deal. This is when we're just visualizing becoming a real estate investor. We have to think about who our customer is. So if we're buying a multifamily building, we have to know who our tenant buyer or our tenant avatar is. Then we need to create our foundation. So this is creating a structure with systems and processes to ensure that we are being consistent and that our business is building on key learnings and takeaways from our experience and that of others. And then we really move into the business execution phase. So this is where we start telling the world, we're doing some marketing, we're building some social media presence. Then we find our people. Who do we want to work with? Who do we want to bring on as clients and partners? Then we need to track our metrics and our financials. We refine our systems and processes based on our metrics, and that is how we, in fact, scale our businesses. And this is where Stefanie comes in with her offerings and her services, because when I look at some of those companies that have really struggled in the last few years, that have in fact gone under, that have been in insolvency protection, it all comes down to the financials. And when I do the deep dive, most of these situations could have been prevented if we knew our correct metrics and our financials, and we actually had someone who was overseeing those numbers, who was making sure that, sometimes as investors, we're encouraged to have this positive mindset, and we become so positive that we actually are not seeing the red flags and the warning signs and what we should, in fact, be paying attention to. And this isn't to assign fault or to assign blame to any one person. I'm speaking in generalities here. But I think the important thing to recognize is that as business owners and entrepreneurs, it is our obligation to know what financial metrics we need to be tracking and to be doing it every single month. We should be able to answer financial questions about our business without even blinking. And this is the power of Stefanie coming in and sharing with us what a CFO is, what numbers we need to track, and then potentially, if you are ready, then Stefanie is willing to reach out a hand. She's got a great little giveaway for us at the end today, which I'm really excited about for all of you. And Stefanie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us about the world of fractional CFOs.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I thank you so much for taking me through all of that information, that what you're doing as well. It's always nice to hear what you're working on. So hopefully everybody can see this. Let me know if not. So like Elizabeth said, I am a real estate investor as well as I call myself a real estate CFO. I'm the owner and founder of Real Estate Investing Finance, and started my business a couple of years ago. And essentially really why I went into business is that I wanted to help real estate investors gain financial clarity to really level up their business with confidence. And I do this by combining over 10 years of experience in corporate finance, directly working in financial planning and analysis, as well as with my experience being a real estate investor myself. And so really why I really came to this business idea is because being part of the real estate investing community, I really did see a gap in the finance component. I really found that area was an area where many investors did not pay much attention to. They didn't like it. And that was actually my favorite part. So I found that would be a great business opportunity. And it really has given me purpose in helping others and bringing finance knowledge to the real estate investing community. As a fractional CFO, I think this is a really new idea in this community. And so opportunities like this, how Elizabeth has asked me to speak today, it really makes me excited to really bring this out to everyone. I feel like this is an opportunity for people to really learn what a fractional CFO does. And so let's start by diving right in. So this is the content that I'll be going through today. First, I'll address the question, what is a fractional CFO? I'll talk about what is a financial power team, what value a CFO brings, what are some of the CFO tasks that I personally do, what does a CFO actually look for, and what are some common investor pitfalls. I'll just conclude briefly with how my company, REI Finance, could potentially help you. And like Elizabeth mentioned, I do have a little announcement and a thank you at the end. All right, so what is a fractional CFO? So a CFO is a senior level executive in charge of all the financial functions in a business. They operate at an equivalent level to a CEO, so you can really think about how expensive they may be to hire. A fractional or part-time CFOs, they're often utilized by small or medium-sized businesses, and that really makes them affordable for small and medium-sized business. So you don't actually have a full-time CFO, but you have someone working for you on a part-time basis, providing that strategic financial guidance. They can help with financial analysis, forecasting and budgeting, cash flow management, fundraising, and really any other aspects of financial management. Like I mentioned, hiring a fractional CFO can be a cost-effective way for companies to access high-level financial expertise without the expense of a full-time executive. So here I have what I view as the financial power team. So what financial professionals do you actually need to run a thriving real estate investing business? And I think some people may be aware of some of these finance professionals, but may not really be aware that there's actually a team that you need in order to cover all components of finance. So in terms of a bookkeeper, I think that's the number one finance professional everybody is mostly aware of. And that person really helps with your record keeping. They're the ones that will actually log into, a spreadsheet for you or an accounting software for you and actually log in your income and expenses and keep your records up to date. I would say for the most part, bookkeepers don't do much financial management. They just make sure your books are complete and accurate, and then they'll probably provide you with financial statements at the end that really just summarize what they've inputted. I would say bookkeepers also are probably not doing any tax planning. There's probably those rare ones out there that might be, but the question would be, are they qualified to do so? Maybe not. I think the other finance professional that people are always aware of is the tax accountant. And so obviously the tax accountant is really operating in specifically and very narrowly in tax. They're doing your tax filings at the end of the year. They're probably doing some tax planning for you. But other than that, they're obviously not helping with the record keeping, and they're not doing anything in financial management. And so here's the area that I really wanted to bring to your attention, because your CFO is actually your core that holds everything together. They are the ones that are handling all of the financial management. But in addition to that, there are areas that a CFO does help with in terms of record keeping, as well as on the tax side. They're the ones that are really the core holding everybody together and really making sure that your entire finance function is executing as planned. And so let me give you some specific examples of what I mean. In terms of record keeping, the CFO will always be looking at the books, because in order to provide insights into what's happening in your business, the books have to be accurate. So within every CFO package, there's always bookkeeping oversight. The CFO will be looking at the books to make sure that they're complete, they're accurate. They will be able to flag any errors. And so that's why I have a little bit of an overlap here, because there is some record keeping that CFOs do participate in. They're basically a second set of eyes on your books. They also do help with year-end review. So that's when there is some overlap on the tax filing side, because where your tax accountant may be coming to you and asking you for various reports, trackers, financial statements at the end of the year, your CFO is really the one that can handle that. They're the ones that will be executing those reports for you, making sure that they're complete, making sure they're ready for your tax filing. In addition, sometimes when tax accountants are doing tax planning, they may ask you to track certain things throughout the year, or they may ask you to put aside some funds in order to save for a potential payment that's coming on the horizon. And again, that's where your fractional CFO would help to actually execute all of that for you. All right, so I'm going to be talking through 6 top areas where a CFO brings value to your business. And this is all through financial management. So the first one I have here is they help to bring crystal clear financials. Like I mentioned, your bookkeeper will be entering in the transactions, but your CFO is then able to look through everything and be that second set of eyes to make sure everything is complete and accurate. The next is insightful explanations. I know there's many times that I talk to investors where they tell me that they receive financial statements, but they have absolutely no idea how to read them. And so this is where your CFO can actually break that down for you and come up with helpful tools, helpful graphs, helpful explanations that really break down what's actually going on in your business. So you can actually understand the drivers and whether things are going well, not going well, and so many insightful explanations that can come out of that. The next is CFOs really help to plan so that you can really avoid pitfalls. Not only are we looking at financials on a current basis, we're also looking at financials projected out into the future. And so this is an opportunity for you to really get a good understanding as to what's on the horizon for you. If there's any red flags, you can start planning for them right now, instead of being surprised, a month or 2 months down the road. This is where we can really provide that foresight. So the next one, CFO does bring value through strong investor relationships. So where an investor may have investors on their deals, a CFO can really help to provide meaningful financial packages to those investors, meaningful updates to them. Personally, I've been on a couple of deals where I didn't really understand the updates that I was receiving. And so I had to ask, many questions to really understand what was actually going on in the project. And so I feel like in experiences like that, you could potentially lose an investor for another future deal because they just felt like they didn't really understand what was going on with the project. They didn't understand if it was doing well, not doing well. Are we on target? And I think that's where a CFO can also really help to make things extra clear when you're presenting that information to your investors. And you can really help to make those investors lifelong investors. A CFO is also a partner to strategize with. I think for everyone in business, there are times where you really feel kind of alone. And so having that partner to really talk through your goals, what you're hoping to achieve, even bringing in some personal goals into, personal plus business goals together, and how can we get your finances to back up those goals to really help you achieve those at the end of the day. That's where a CFO comes in to really hold your hand and make that happen with you. And the last is time freedom. As a CFO, you really take over that finance function for a business. And so the owner is really then able to step off of the finances and move on to areas that they either really enjoy or they find that they're making a bigger impact. All right, so what is a CFO actually doing? This is an example of what I typically do on a monthly, quarterly, annually, and even as an as-needed basis. I know sometimes people wonder what exactly I'm doing, so I wanted to give a little bit of some guidance so that you really understand how busy a CFO is and all the different areas that they're going to be looking at. This obviously is very dependent on the type of business I'm supporting, how large the client is, what industries they're specifically operating in. But I try to give some general guidance here. So on a monthly basis, I would really be looking at the books. I would be doing bookkeeping oversight to make sure everything is complete and accurate. I would then do the financial analysis. And really in the financial analysis, what you're trying to communicate to your client is, what is the story for the month? If you were to explain it, what really happened? Are there some emerging trends that we should be aware of? Are there potential red flags that we should be aware of? By doing that financial analysis, it really gives you the information to understand what needs to happen moving forward. I also look very closely at cash flow, especially for real estate investing businesses that are typically cash flow strapped. This is an area that is extremely important to keep track of and to forecast it to make sure that you're never missing any of the obligations that you need to make. I also suggest all my clients have reserves on their properties. And so I do track, I call it reserve management. I do track all the reserves that we're putting aside for each property. And I provide updates to the clients on, how much we may have for CapEx or how much we may have for vacancy, just to keep them aware of all the different buckets of funding that we have that are available to us, should we need to start using those or planning for a project. And so that's what I typically do on a monthly basis. On a quarterly basis, I then typically help with investor packaging, because that's usually when investors update their investors, is usually on a quarterly basis. We'll probably also do a check-in on our growth plan and making sure that we're on target to hit the specific goals that we've set out. And I also do help with some consolidated financial reporting. So this is really for investors that have many corporations. Sometimes it's hard to understand how everything is doing all together, like as a total, everything that I own. I help to consolidate that into a dashboard. So it's very easy for my clients to see how everything is doing all together, all in one spot. On an annual basis, I then help with the goal setting for the following year. Again, having those goals and then having those finance goals behind them to support actually achieving those goals is essential. Another big piece is doing the budgets and forecasts for the following year. This to me is one of the biggest processes and one of the most important ones that I always want to make sure that I'm doing for my clients. I think this really helps to get people focused on the expectation. And then once you have that expectation, it's all about just execution. Operations know exactly what they're doing when that expectation has already been set. I also do typically do a check-in on my client's net worth. I can help them to calculate that just to have a gauge of, how they're doing in terms of net worth. On an as-needed basis, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are basically, I cater those directly to my clients. If they need something specific, I'm always there to help with that and support them. Just looking over on the side here, while I'm doing all of these tasks, the ultimate goal is really the financial clarity. And so to me, the financial clarity comes in these 4 ways. First, it's the accurate numbers. Not having accurate numbers, you can't do anything with that. So really the base in everything is having those accurate numbers in order for you to then have the financial insight and the understanding of what's going on in your business. Once you know what's going on in your business, you can then start looking and planning ahead. By looking and planning ahead, you have a direct path to achieve your goals. And so that to me is the circle of financial clarity there. So this is one of the questions that I get asked most. A lot of people ask me, what does a CFO actually look for? And so this is where it is so very dependent on, again, the situation, the client that I'm working with, the property that they have, the business that they're running, even geographically. It's so very dependent. So it's very hard for me to give, exact answer to that question. But I try to bucket it into 4 areas that I typically look for, just with all the services that I provide. So the first is I obviously am looking very closely at the financials, and I'm looking at them not only in isolation to, these are the numbers for the month. It's always good to, numbers don't mean anything if you don't have something to compare it to. And so what can you compare it to? And there's many options. You can compare it to a benchmark. And if some of you may know this book, this is one I use quite often. It's Profit First for Real Estate Investing. That does give you a great starting point for a benchmark if you're looking for something. They do have percentages in that book that do help to assess whether you're spending maybe too much on your operating costs or maybe too much on your taxes. Like, it helps you to analyze your property financials if you're looking for somewhere to start. What you can also do is you could compare your numbers versus a trend. So, potentially if you're mid-year and the last 5 or 6 months you've been at a certain trajectory, and all of a sudden you're up or you're down, that helps to identify if there's an issue you need to look into. You can also compare your financials versus a forecast or a budget. And that's why I said forecasting and budgeting are so important, because that's where you can then use that information as you move forward and compare your actual financials versus what you forecasted or budgeted. And then the last one is just comparing your financials against your expectations. So sometimes what happens is when you're acquiring the property, you need to be looking at, what do you expect from this property? What profitability are you expecting out of it? And you should have that documented, because if you do go ahead and acquire it, well, where are you versus the expectation? And I think that's sometimes where maybe investors get lost or not doing that check to see if what they actually planned actually happened. And so that's one thing that I look at. The next thing I look at is future outlook. So when you have the financial insight of what's going on, you then use that information to look ahead. And when looking ahead, you're really then looking at, based on where I am, where does that mean I'm going? And if I go in that direction, what situation am I in? Am I in a good situation, not good situation? And if you're not in a not good situation, well, where's the risk coming from? And how can I mitigate that? It's really just getting ahead of any issues that are on the horizon. The next area I look at are just general opportunities. Of course, as a CFO, I'm there to provide value. And so where can I suggest help in my client's business? Some of the things I look at is overall finance processes. Can I make them more efficient? Are there any bottlenecks? Like, for example, I know receipt storage is a big issue for business owners. Is there any area in the process of operating to booking all your transactions in the accounting system, to providing supporting documentation, to handing that off to do the financial insight? Are there any areas that are bottlenecks that are really causing us to not get to the final state of getting the insight and planning ahead? And so I help with that entire process. I also help to identify areas where we may be able to reduce costs and increase our income, because essentially that's where we're able to then increase our profitability and really grow. And so, the insight really helps with that. And then, just being creative as well. Again, being that partner to strategize with, using my experience as a real estate investor as well, I would help with providing some insights and providing some suggestions on how to make something more profitable. And the last piece here I have is the last thing that I typically look at is just where we are versus where we want to be with our business goals. Looking at, are we hitting the investor expectations? And ultimately, are we on track to being profitable? That's why we're in business, is to be profitable. And so overarching, all of those need to be monitored in order to essentially make us hit our goals at the end of the year. All right, so these are the most common investor pitfalls that that I find, and I decided to put this in here because I'm hoping by doing that, everyone can avoid these. And so I'll go through these one by one. The first is not investing in financial education. I'm a big proponent of financial literacy. I think more people need to do it. More people need to talk about it. It needs to start, as young kids, and I think the awareness needs to be in our culture. And so if you know that this is not your strong suit, that's okay. It's not everyone's strong suit, but actually stepping up and getting the education that you need is really the backbone to everything. Even if you hire a CFO, you still need to have that financial education because you need to be aware of what's going on. And you also need to understand what a CFO is telling you. If you don't have that education, it is quite challenging. And so I just encourage everyone to get the help that they need in terms of doing some research, maybe finding a finance coach, and just getting the education. Now, a big point here that I wanted to cover is that once you do own one property, you do own a business. And so I do think that just needs to be taken really seriously. And that's why definitely get the education. The second is not getting the right tools and systems in place. I think investors get really bogged down because they just don't know what to have in place in order to make things smooth for them. I think maybe to some extent, they get a lot of help with actually acquiring the deal, but then once they acquire the deal, they're not really sure how to manage it afterwards. And so that's where, again, having the right tools and systems in place in terms of what are you doing for recording your transactions? Are you using a spreadsheet? Are you using a software? Who's going to do it for you? Do you feel capable to do that yourself, or do you need to hire that out? Where are you saving your receipts and documentation? Is it in a Google Docs, or is it in a software built for receipt storage, such as Dext? And who's going to be looking at the cash flow and looking at how the business is doing on a monthly basis? When are you doing your check-ins? This is all part of the system that you need to have in place in order to really cover everything and stay consistent and really have the insights that you need in order to run your business properly. The next step is, and I covered this a little bit already, but not staying consistent with your check-ins. You may have your systems in place, but if you don't take the time to actually sit down and run through the entire system on a consistent basis, you then start to lose the insight, and it does start to end up piling up on you. And so, I know this is not everyone's favorite area and favorite place to spend their time. But what I find helpful is, making it a little fun for yourself. Maybe have a great snack, maybe go to a coffee shop to do it, but making that date with yourself on at least a monthly basis to sit down and review your financials is really key, and then staying consistent with it. The last one is not knowing when to seek additional support. When you first attain your first property, definitely get the education on how to manage it yourself, because having one property, you probably aren't outsourcing at this time, and that's okay. But having the education to run it smoothly from the start is a great benefit, and it's something that will grow with you. And so knowing that once you start scaling and things start to get a little out of control, potentially at the 3-4 properties point, is then when you need to start reaching out for some support and some help and some professionals to really get in there and help you with the finance components. As I mentioned on a previous slide, that would be looking at a bookkeeper, looking at a CFO, and getting your tax accountant, all three of them working together to help you run your whole finance component of your power team. All right, so wrapping up, I'm just going to go through quickly what REI Finance does and how can REI Finance help you if you're looking for some finance support. So I do help in 3 different areas. I'm trying to help investors of all levels here. And so if you have 1 to 3 properties, I do have a CFO Yourself downloadable program, which I'll get into a little bit further on the next slide. If you have 3 to 5 properties and you're also looking for help with bookkeeping and tax services, I do provide a all-encompassing full suite finance support where I would help with the CFO services, and I would partner with a real estate specific bookkeeper or tax accountant that I can refer you to, and we'll partner together to provide the full suite of finance support. And then for investors that have more than 6 properties and potentially already have a bookkeeper and tax accountant, I can step in and help with the fractional CFO services. This package, or all the CFO service packages, really, I do put together as customized for your specific business, and I do offer 3 tiers of support, so you're then able to pick something that works best for you and your budget. So this is, oh, my picture's not showing up. Oh, maybe it is. I see it on the screen. This is the announcement that I had. I just released my CFO Yourself course. It was yesterday, so just in time for our webinar here. And so I did want to offer, I am offering right now 50% off on that course. What you'll get in this course is, I put together an REI Finance Fundamentals e-course where I walk through the 4 steps to financial clarity as a real estate investor. I do have my cash flow tracking tool, which I do use with my own clients, and I've recorded a how-to video on how to use that cash flow tracking tool. And included in the package is 1 45-minute virtual touch point with me. So you're able to ask specific questions about your specific circumstances and situation. So I wanted to offer that to you guys today. This 50% off is for the month of February, so just maybe a week and a half of a 50% off deal. So if that's something you're interested in, I have a scanner here. Other than that, feel free to connect with me. I always love talking about finance. You can find me on Instagram at reifinance.ca. Send me an email, check out my website, and just looking forward to get connected with you guys. That's it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stefanie. We have a number of questions, but can we just show Stefanie a little love, guys? We so appreciate you coming and sharing some information and some insight with us. Anybody here avoid numbers? Anybody else? Is it just
Everyone.
me? Am I the only one who, when it comes to numbers, it's really tempting. They can be really intimidating for those of us who are not, I call them my human computers, like my husband's an engineer. Sorry, do you want to stop screen sharing, Stefanie?
Yes.
Or I can boot you
Yes.
off, but that's not very nice as a host to
Yeah,
do that.
sorry.
So one of the things I find with a lot of investors is the numbers can feel like the heavy part or the hard part. So what we tend to do is push them off. And it's actually really detrimental to our businesses to do that, because it's one of those things that the longer you leave it, the harder it gets. Even with something as simple as, managing our receipts, for example, it's much harder to grab a shoebox full of receipts in December and try and go back and remember and, try
Yeah.
and track our mileage and all those other things. So, having a plan for the year, and I appreciate you, having access to a CFO, a 45-minute session for $99, like that seems like a really good investment in my business to me. So, okay. Oh, Doug is saying, how do we sign up for your course?
So I did put the QR code there, but feel free to visit my website, www.reifinance.ca. I do have a little banner at the top announcing the 50% off sale. Feel free to take a look there, and hopefully it goes through smoothly. I did launch it yesterday, so hopefully there's no technical issues.
Well, the QR code didn't load, so that's why Deb's asking,
Okay,
but we
that's
will be
why.
happy to definitely go and check out your website.
Okay,
Yes, I like that. Kim said it's nice to have financial support that you can't always get with an accountant. Absolutely. This is
yes.
one of the challenges that I talk a lot about with my clients is a lot of our accountants are very much I find Cherry Chan is not like this, but there's a lot of accountants out there where it's just, I'm here to file your taxes. And
It's a
as real
tax
estate
accountant.
investors, my
Mhm.
expectation is I want someone to help me plan. I want someone who's going to proactively say, "Hey, you know what? You should be doing this year." Or this piece has changed in the world of taxes and what we're allowed to do. So here's how you can counteract the loss of this write off, or here's the
Mhm.
documentation you need to have. Like there should be communication. And I just find sometimes, accountants, they're just, I do taxes. I do taxes.
And so that's why I wanted to bring that awareness as well, is because I think accountants as general get the bad rap because we need to be this all-encompassing person, but I don't think everyone realizes that being a CPA, I am an accountant myself, you can specialize in so many different areas. And so it's really just making sure that you're getting that full level of service. And so if you have a tax accountant, they will not be looking at your financial management on a monthly basis. They won't be making suggestions for cash flow. And so that's where there's the gap. And so that's where I felt like the service was so needed, because these are the things you should be looking at on a monthly basis running your business. And especially since real estate investors with large portfolios, that's where you need to really have an eye on those things.
Absolutely. Liza had asked if this course is suitable for small business owners, and then we're going to dive into the questions.
So I did try to make it more like, when I did my course and when I did the videos, I did refer to it. Um, I did say you can use this for properties or business. So you could potentially use the tracker as a business. Um, I mean, there's when you're filling out the tracker, there's income sources. So instead of writing, unit one or building X, you could write various sources of income. And then again, when you go to the expense side, I've left it fully customizable to you. So, where somebody might have a section of utilities, you might not have section of utilities, depending, unless you have an office space. But you might have other expenses. And so you would just use those areas, or key in the description of what you want in terms of your expenses. So I do think it is possible to use it as a business. I use it for my business. So it's helpful for me. I just would not write properties, anything property related. But feel
Okay.
free, if you want to ask me a specific question, you can send me an email and I can let you know exactly if it may work for you.
Love it. Okay. All right. So first question comes from Trevor. Is it normally expected that a CFO has the relationships with lenders and banks, et cetera, to manage all capital requirements for the business?
Yeah, so this is actually something I'm dealing with right now for one of the clients that I'm supporting. She did select my highest level package, which is a fully hands-off package approach. She is quite large in scale, so she really wanted that time freedom away to do other aspects of the business. She is in the process of a refinance, and I am helping her. I don't initiate the process in terms of, I don't go and find lenders for her, but she will go and find the lenders. She will ask, I will then be added into the communication. And as the lenders come back and say, hey, I can provide X amount at this percentage, at this mortgage, mortgage payment, and I'll help her analyze the various options. I'll put them into like a nice, easy to look at spreadsheet where, lender one, lender two, lender three, so she can see exactly what the options are. And then really it's up to her. I will identify, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons, this is the benefit to you, this is the disadvantage to you. And then really it's up to her which one she wants to decide on. So I do help with that. And I also do help with, I do liaise with other finance professionals people that are wrapping up their year end, I am in contact with their tax accountant. If the tax accountant needs additional information, I then look it up, I send it to them. And so I am like that finance oversight, helping with all aspects of finance.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. That's so helpful. Like I'm just thinking of all the investors where I'm seeing most of these businesses that are struggling right now, most of the investors who are struggling, it's kind of two-pronged. It's cash flow management and making sure that there's sufficient cash flow there, enough of a buffer to be able to manage the cash flow in the future. But the other piece that I really see investors struggling, particularly people who are doing BRRRRs, whether it's buying a single family home, converting it into a duplex, or buying a multifamily and trying to get financing in place at the end, that financing piece is huge. And even when investors are securing financing, they're still struggling with the loan to value. So to have somebody be able to speak the language and provide the information and the documents they're looking for, if that can help you increase the loan to value or have more lenders and with better terms to choose from, that is really critical for helping you be able to grow and scale your business. Love it. Okay. Do you collaborate with the accountant, or is it better to be more of a three-party meeting or four if your bookkeeper's involved?
What do you mean by collaborate exactly? Like, I'm just
It,
wondering.
I think Kim is saying like if you're going to have a meeting, you showed the slide with the three people, and Kim
Hmm.
type in the chat box and tell me if I'm misinterpreting, but my guess is that she kind of means, do you work directly with the accountant to help create kind of a plan and to get the taxes filed and those kinds of things? Or is it a collaborative meeting where everybody meets together and discusses everything?
So I haven't really had a circumstance where everyone is on the phone at the same time. Like, I wouldn't say we do monthly meetings and we have all three of us there. It's typical to have the bookkeeper there just because they are very close with all the transactions. So if there is a question like, hey, like what did happen in repairs and maintenance, the bookkeeper usually is very close to that and can answer that question quite quickly. So I have collaborated more with the bookkeepers. In terms of the tax accountants, I haven't up to this time really found like them meeting with us on a monthly basis. But if there are circumstances, specifically like at year end, is really when we're dealing with them quite a bit. I would deal directly with them. I would help to provide information that they need, and then vice versa. If there's any tax planning, they would provide information that I need to have to actually go and execute those tax plans. Like if they want me to do something specific, can you track this throughout the year? Can you set aside, put a plan in place to set aside this amount because we know we're going to have a big tax burden, later on down the road. Basically, helping to execute what they want. That's where I work with them.
Perfect. Fantastic. Okay. Next question. What was the name of the system for storing your receipts that you mentioned in your presentation?
So there's the one I mentioned in my presentation was called Dext. That is one option. I'm trying to think what the names of I know HubDoc does some of, I believe has that as well. There's a couple of them out there if you're looking for a system that does specifically receipt storage. And these ones are typically also link up to your QuickBooks or your accounting software. And so it is helpful sometimes to have that system because you can then push transactions directly into your QuickBooks and it would create the entry for you. So it does save some time. I haven't found one specific receipt storage that I'm fully happy with. I find some of them are good in some circumstances and then not good in others. So I would definitely just, do a little bit of research to figure out which one specifically might be helpful for you.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. And can a CFO also be your tax accountant, or do you want to have a separate person?
I think it depends who you can find, right? I personally don't know someone that's offering fractional CFO services and tax accounting, at least in the real estate investing space. I know Cherry Chan has a CFO service business, but I think it's for associations, like not for profits. I think it really depends on where the specialty is of the accountant that you're working with. If and how available are they to you? Like Elizabeth had mentioned, the tax accountant might be very good at providing the tax advice, but are they going to be doing the financial management for you on a monthly basis? And if the answer is yes, you found someone that does all of that, and has committed to providing all of those services to you, then I don't see an issue in using that one person. The issue is I haven't really found that. So I'd be curious to know if there is somebody out there doing that.
Perfect. Okay. I'm just responding to a couple of questions directly here.
Okay.
Um, so I own 4 properties through my corp, and I'm a cash partner on another multifamily. I have a bookkeeper and an accountant already. Would the DIY course still be beneficial?
It depends if you are okay with managing your cash flow on your own, or if you want that off of your, like, you don't have the capacity for it, and you want that like off of your plate, then a CFO would be helpful. Of course, bringing on a CFO, they would do more than just the cash flow, but um, the do-it-yourself course is really focusing on cash flow management. It is geared mostly for beginner real estate investors because that's really the most important thing for beginner real estate investors to start looking at is cash flow. I do have plans to expand out that course. I would like to include additional help with reserve management, which is making plans to put aside funds for future projects. I would love to do a component with forecasting and budgeting because I think that's another important area. But all of that is not quite available just yet. So I would say that it really depends on your time and whether you want to spend the time doing the cash flow. If you do, then I would say the course could help. If you don't, then potentially reaching out to a CFO and talking about what services are best for your business might be an option.
Perfect. There's a couple of questions left here that are quite specific. It sounds like to individual people and their situations. So
Okay.
what I'm going to recommend is that they send you an email and just book some time to get a better sense of the services that are available and, kind of what people are needing or what is missing for people in their individual businesses.
Okay.
How would you prefer people to do that? Do you want them to send you an email just to say, hey, can I grab a couple minutes of your time? I wanted to talk you through my situation and let's see if it makes sense.
Best thing to do is reach out to me by email. I do love details. So usually when somebody does reach out to me, I do actually respond directly and say, hey, I would love to know a little bit more about your situation. So if you already know that and you have a specific question, reach out, send me an email, and then I can figure out if I can address your question, by email, or if we want to book some time. Happy to do either way, but I do love details. I'm an accountant, so
Okay, so I think what I'm going to do, Kim had asked, how does your tracker differ from what QuickBooks offers? Can you tell her in like 15 seconds or less?
I'm interested to know what QuickBooks area she's looking at. I would say that mine is a customizable tracker where you're able to really put in exactly what's relevant for your specific business. So it is pretty flexible. And there is a bank reconciliation function directly in there. So you can make sure you have all of your transactions in your account and make sure everything is tied off. Um, that's why I like it. I like to make sure that everything is accounted for and everything is accurate. And so that's why I do it outside of QuickBooks because I feel like I wasn't able to get what I needed in QuickBooks.
Perfect. I love it. Okay. So everybody, there's a couple of questions here that we've run out of time to answer. Please do reach out to Stefanie. Do me a favor. If you are not following Stefanie or myself on Instagram, pull out your phone right now. Give us a follow. Stefanie provides lots of great little videos with insights and things to think about. And hopefully you feel the same way because I do the same thing. And it was such a pleasure to have all of you here today with us during our lunch hour. Thank you so much for joining us. And stay tuned for my next webinar. It's coming up in 2 weeks. And it is actually going to be on self-storage because I know that's something that a lot of people are talking about. If you are an investor, particularly in in the world of Ontario right now, we know how challenging the landlord tenant board is. So a lot of people are exploring opportunities to invest that don't involve tenants. And self-storage is something that in this sort of time where people are not able to afford larger apartments as much as they might have been able to readily. I can see self-storage places going up all around me. So if you are interested in self-storage in either Canada or the US, Martin and his partner Roderick are going to be my guests, and we're going to be diving deep into the world of self-storage. Thank you to everyone who attended. I'm so glad you found this helpful. The recording, if you missed any of this, will be coming to you to your inbox before the end of the week. My trusty assistant, Mary Beth, will handle that piece of it and make sure it comes out to you. Be sure to register for my next webinar. And don't forget to follow Stefanie and I on Instagram. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much, Stefanie, for giving us your time when I know you have so much going on your end as well.
No problem. Happy to chat about finance as always.
Awesome. Take care, guys. All the best. See you in a couple of weeks.